to lead us into our time of meditation. So I invite all of you at this time to just get comfortable in your chairs. Allow them to support you. Begin to relax your bodies. Allow your feet to be firmly on the floor in front of you and grounded. And maybe rest your hands either in your lap or by your side. And just if you're wanting to, you can allow your eyes to close, or maybe you just close them part of the way so that you're just of single focus right now. And allow yourself to focus on that inner breath. Breathing in thoughts of peace and calm and tranquility. And just breathing out release. You are the observer of the thoughts. You are the observer of your emotions. You are the observer of your mind. You are the observer of your breath. As we learn to weather strong emotions, we can understand that a strong emotion is like a storm. If you look at a tree in a storm, the top of the tree seems fragile, like it might break at any moment. You might be afraid that the storm might uproot the tree, but I invite you to turn your attention to the trunk of the tree, the roots of the tree, as you realize that its roots are deeply anchored in the ground. It's flexible but solid. And you see that the tree will be able to hold. And I invite you to think of yourself as that tree. During a time of strong emotion, don't stay at the level of the head or the heart, which are towards the top of the tree. Allow yourself to leave the heart and leave that eye of the storm. And come back to the trunk of the tree, that spiritual energy that is your support. Your trunk, you could think of it as just 1 centimeter below your navel, but it's the place that you can focus on as you breathe. Allow your breath to be that centering focal point for you. Observe your breath and allow it to move you to the center of your spirit, to the center of your beingness. And then, and only then, can you survive the storm of strong emotion. So I invite you to just focus on that breath. Allow thoughts to come, allow them to go. Allow any emotions that might rise up to do the same. Don't try to grasp or cling, just allow them to move through your branches and allow yourself to center. Just be the observer. Imagine that you have the strength, the stability, the fortitude of the tree. And let us affirm, I am a presence of strength. I have the ability to persevere and be stable in all that I do. I possess stability in mind and body. And I invite you just to take a few moments here to enter the stillness, enter the silence that is the center of your being. And just allow yourself to be the observer, to sit in that stillness. As we enter the silence, enter the silence. Give yourself a few more moments to sit here in the breath, in the center, in the stillness of your being. Gently, ever so gently, as you bring your focus back to your breath and back to your body. Maybe just feel the sensations along your skin to start with, and then maybe start to wiggle fingers and toes as you bring your awareness back to your body temple. You can always come back to this space. It's always present, always there. And ever so gently, just allow yourself to maybe release any other tension that might be remaining in your body. Maybe just roll your shoulders or roll your neck. And when you're ready, and only when you're ready, I invite you to open your eyes and return to this space. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. So over the past few weeks, we have been working with Michael Singer's book, Living Untethered. We've explored various aspects of our consciousness and the objects of our consciousness, including the outside world, including our thoughts, and now we're going to delve into our feelings, right? And we've started to examine how the outside world is there. It's beyond the sense of self, right? It's not self. The self simply observes the outside world. The same can be said of our thoughts. The thoughts are beyond the self. They're outside of the self. They're not the self. The self observes the thoughts. And so today we're going to be talking about the same thing having to do with the heart and the emotions. So we've explored this impersonal nature of the outside world, and I just want to bring this back into your attention. That what happens outside in the outside world, it's impersonal. It's not about you, right? You observe it, but it's really not about you. Your thoughts can feel like they're about you, and we'll be talking about those feelings today, but those thoughts are not you. You are the observer of your thoughts. All right. So as we've started to expand our consciousness and this understanding as we are acting as this observer and building our awareness as the observer, we've started to understand that we have past experiences in our lives where we gave credence to those thoughts, where we gave credence to the outside world, where we gave credence to our emotion. And that creates impressions, formations, this kind of stuff that we pick up along the way. And it creates conditioned responses in the storehouse of the subconscious. And you can think of them as Michael Singer does. He calls them samskaras. So these formations that happen. Before we delve into this idea of samskaras, I want to talk a little bit about my preparation of this talk, because it was, again, like a realization, I have this consciousness. I am the observer. You realize this when you meditate, right? When you meditate, you realize you're the observer of your thoughts and your feelings, but in the busyness of life, we forget that. So in preparing for this talk, I read this section I think 3, maybe 4 times. I lose count. And every time I got a little something else out of it. I was underlining new things. I was making new notes. But I found myself wanting to know, what is the science behind all this? It talks about the spiritual aspect, the energy. What is the science behind the emotions? What are emotions? What are they? What do they do? Where do they originate? And that itself, I realized, is part of my past stuff. Wanting to know, wanting to have those answers. It's like, oh, wow. I wanted the concrete stuff. I wanted to know. And in reality, science doesn't firmly know. They make guesses. They make, kind of these rational kind of theories that make sense, but they really don't have answers 100% on what causes emotions, on how they work. And then I found myself looking at that sense of desire, that sense of curiosity, and I realized, oh, I'm experiencing the emotions, right, of desire and curiosity to do this based on this past stuff, based on wanting to know, wanting to have answers, not being okay with the unknown in that moment. But what I did discover when I went down the rabbit hole of looking at the science, because I did some of that, I couldn't resist, I wanted to know. Well, first of all, I discovered that scientists don't really agree on the definition of emotion yet. There's some consensus in certain fields, but they haven't come to consensus 100%. But I did find out some interesting things. So scientists theorize, for example, that emotions are learned rather than hardwired. I want you to think about that. That we learn our emotions rather than being hardwired in our brain. And that adds something, I think, to our study. They've also come to believe that these emotions, right, that emotions are not purely reactive. It's not something that just something happens and then it feels like that. It feels like that, but that's not really what happens. So the going theory in the realm of science is that the brain is sending us a signal. That emotions are a type of signal. The brain, it monitors our bodies, right? All these different things that are coming in, our respiration, our glucose, the skin, our skin temp, things that are coming in through the senses, and our temperature and our heart rate, all these various things. And it's evaluating the situation outside of us, and it's evaluating the situation inside of us based on all this sensory stuff that's coming in. And it, based on our past experiences, predicts what we should feel. Our emotions in the realm of science are thought as a prediction. It's a prediction. Your body is sending you a kind of summary report rather than sending you all this data up into your consciousness that you then have to sort through consciously. It's saying, hey, you've done this based on past experience. This is how you've handled this, and so this is how you should feel. But we don't take it as a summary report, right? What happens when we get caught in that emotion, right? We don't think of it as just like a turn signal on a car, right? When it happens to us, we're like, oh, what am I going to do? It's a reaction. It feels like a reaction, but it's not really. So in the midst of our emotion, we can get consumed by these emotions. We can feel bound to these emotions. But the science suggests something very similar to what Michael Singer is talking to us about in this section. And that is that over time, we can change our perspective. We can change our reactions. And over time, we can change how the brain is going to predict how we should react, how we should feel in that given thing. So it's not just we're always going to feel anger in that situation. There are times that you can train your brain. There are ways you can train your brain to say, hey, in that situation, I don't want to feel that way anymore if I come across a similar situation. So I'm going to learn how to do that. So in this book, Living Untethered, Michael Singer does take a more spiritual approach. He talks about the energy of the body, the spiritual energy. In his view, emotions are related to the heart. And now I don't know about you, but when I get a really strong emotion, I feel it right here. I feel like a buildup right here. And maybe that's where it comes from, that idea that our emotions are tied to our heart. But he's not talking about the physical heart, the thing that pumps the blood through your body. He's talking about your spiritual heart, the energy heart, that energy that kind of flows through you and comes through this fourth chakra. And he's also talking about emotions being generated when we have those samskaras. So those kind of formations and what happens when that blocks our energy flow. Now, rather you take a scientific view or a more religious, spiritual view when you are reading this material, however you're approaching that, I think we can agree, all here in this room, that emotions are not outside things. They're not outside the body. They are, in fact, something that we feel, a sensation in the body. We all get them, right? Yet, he says something interesting. They're not physical. Well, in some ways, they're a part of the physical body, but they're not physical in that we can cling to them, in that we can touch them or measure them, right? So when we have a really happy emotion, what happens if you try to cling to it? If you try to grasp it, it often goes away, right? And what happens if you have a negative emotion you're trying to resist and you're trying to push it away almost like a physical object? It can feel like it consumes you sometimes, right? Yet emotions are fleeting. Emotions come and go. They ebb and they flow. I think we can also agree that in our day-to-day lives, emotions are important. And I'm going to get to this. They are important. Because we make a lot of our decisions based on that summary report that we're getting from the body. Now, Michael Singer has a view, not so much in brain science, although I don't think it's that difficult to jump from brain science to what he talks about in terms of vibrations in the body. But he sees emotion as these vibrations, a change in one's internal energy, that spiritual energy. You can call it chi, you can call it spirit, he calls it shakti. Now, science may be years, decades away from proving or disproving like the actual nature of emotions, where they originate, that sort of thing, if they are tied to some sort of underlying energy that, spiritual traditions posit is there. But I think we can also agree that emotions seemingly have the power to affect our overall mood. And you'll notice I'm using this word seemingly. They can raise or lower our mood, seemingly. They can seemingly brighten or ruin our day. They seemingly have the power to bring us to the peaks of joy or the depths of despair. And Michael Singer throughout this chapter says, who is it that's observing? Who is it that is experiencing these emotions? And my next question started to become, why do our inner selves give these sensations so much power? Why do we allow them to affect us so much? Yes, sometimes we feel joy. Sometimes we feel sadness. Sometimes we feel compassion and generosity. Sometimes, I, myself included, feel greed, feel jealousy, right? We have this gamut of emotions. And I know you guys experience this too, love the highs of positive emotions, and you love them so much that you try to control this thing in the outside world that you really can't control. And what happens when the outside world starts to change? You get disappointed. You get frustrated. You grieve over the fact that you can't change this stuff in the outside world that is making you happy, right? That's bringing you joy. And then we start to feel negative emotions. And when we feel negative emotions, what happens? We push them away. We don't want to feel them. They become too uncomfortable. Or another train of thought, another belief that might be buried deep within your subconscious, or it makes you weak. To have those emotions makes you weak. That's another belief we might hold. And I would posit that it's not the emotions that have a problem. It's not the emotions that are a problem, and we'll get a little bit more to what Michael Singer says about this in just a moment, because you really love your emotions, and I'm going to prove it to you. Okay? What happens? How many of you guys watch TV? How many of you guys read books? How many of you guys listen to music? How many of you guys go to the movie theater? Okay, you love your emotions. Because when you do that, you live vicariously through these fictional characters or through this music, and you love the ups and downs that it brings. If you didn't, you wouldn't go read. You wouldn't go watch stuff. You wouldn't listen to music. You love your emotions. The problem is not the emotions. The problem is when you personalize them and make it about you. Now, long before science tried to explain this human experience that we call emotion, long before psychologists, there are spiritual paths that were positing, hey, what is this thing that we call emotion? What does it do? Where is it from? Now, one such explanation comes from Eastern philosophy, and it's this idea of samskaras. And this is what Michael Singer talks about in this section on the heart. He posits that these formations, you can think of them as formations in your subconscious, or you can think about them as formations that happen that block the flow of energy, whatever you're comfortable with there. But these formations, this is what causes the issues. Our past unresolved stuff, the stuff that we've made personal. And this, he posits, according to his kind of Eastern philosophy and worldview, blocks the energy that's coming up through the heart chakra. This is known as the Anahata chakra. And so based on these traditions of this Eastern religious philosophy that he's trained in, he suggests that these samskaras have their foundation in our unresolved stuff, in our past experiences. And I started to realize, hey, scientists really think the same thing. They just say it's in, the subconscious. It's kind of like the way that we're wiring our brain over time, but it's a similar thing. This patterned idea, the stuff that we're not dealing with, or stuff that we've dealt with maybe in an unhealthy way, right? Time and time and time again, that's what causes that. So in Singer's view, if we're unable to deal with this with our thoughts, again, thoughts are an outside object of consciousness, right? If we can't deal with this stuff in a rational way, and we push it away, it becomes these samskaras. And they make their roots in this emotional kind of center, in this energy. He talks about the difficulty of opening and closing the heart because of these samskaras. And I think you all can relate, right? We know that if something presses our buttons because of our past stuff, and then somebody comes up and they do that, what happens to your heart? You're like, no, I don't like that. I don't want to be around that, right? You know it because it's happened. If there's a situation or a person that reminds you of something from your past that you dislike, didn't like, don't want that, have a bad association with, what happens? Your heart just goes, nope. Not going to give you my loving energy, not going to give you my time, not going to give you that sort of stuff, right? At the same time, what happens if we've come into contact with somebody who we have positive associations with, the kinds of situations from our past and the kind of, actions that they might, generate? Oh, wow, I've had good experiences with that in the past. So you're doing the same kind of stuff. And so your heart's just open, the energy is just freely flowing, right? And then Michael Singer also posits, though, that there are times where the heart can just and not open. What happens when you have so many samskaras, so much stuff, that you either don't deal with it, you're always in the realm of thoughts, right? That you're not going to deal with it. You have so much stuff, you're like, nope. Have you met people that you feel like they just can't open their heart to anyone or anything? Here's the thing. It's not the heart that's the problem. It's not your emotions that are the problem. Neither of those are really the problem, right? The emotions are just signals. The emotions are just signals based on what you've dealt with in the past. The emotions are not the problem. They can feel like the problem. They're not the problem. The problem is the stuff. The formations, the samskaras, whatever this kind of, predilections that we have towards the things we like and things we don't like and things that drive us bonkers, right? And things, nope, I just don't want to be around that. That's where we have work to do. So as I finish up here today, I really want to share a couple quotes with you from Michael Singer that I think help sum this up. He says that the goal of the journey we are taking is not to change your thoughts or emotions. It's for you to stay seated in the seat of the self while accepting these different shifts that are taking place. He goes on to say, from this vantage point, the emotions can change, right? They can change. You can notice them changing, but you don't go anywhere. You remain the one who notices the emotions, who hears the thoughts, who looks out through the eyes. Who is this one? Who is this one? That's the important question he brings up. He goes on to say, this is what our journey is all about. There is no spirituality except where the seat of the self, except in the seat of the self. Spirituality is about spirit, and the seat of the self is spirit. So Rose shared a quote with us earlier about, first and foremost, you have to recognize you're not your heart. You are the experiencer of your heart, and the same is true of your emotions. You are not your emotions. You are the experiencer of your emotions. So basically, this first step, what we've been covering in the outside world, in the mind, and the thoughts, and now the feelings, is to understand that you are witness to this stuff. You are not this stuff. And so we are witness to our emotions. The goal isn't to push them down, to resist them, and it's not to become consumed by them. The goal is to be the centered observer. He goes on to say, the important question is not what to do about this. Who is noticing all of this? The same consciousness is aware of the entire process going on inside. He goes on to say, there may be many samskaras in there. And I know I've got them. I've got lots of samskaras. But there are not many of you in there. There's only one consciousness watching all these competing patterns and identifying with them. Lastly, I'll share this quote with you. He goes on to say, when you become one integrated seer, the single witness watching all these different things pass inside, you are centered, you are clear, you are free. And don't you feel that in meditation? You know you can do it. It's just a matter of bringing that mindful consciousness into your everyday life. So I invite you to join us in the next few weeks. We're going to go from this idea of being the witness consciousness to talking about what does it mean to do something about these samskaras, right? What does it mean to start to process this stuff and really sit as the witness consciousness? So thank you so much for today. Thank you for being here with me today. Namaste.